I'm going to try to, I'm just quickly going to look at this. Okay. I'm going to try to get through this kind of quickly because I think most of you are here for specific questions that you want to ask. So we do have a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. So just hang in there with your questions. You can also submit your questions on the chat. We have a couple of people that are watching the chat that can perhaps answer some of those very common questions. So just to let you all know. So let's see. I think that's it for now. So we'll just go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for showing up on the webinar here. That's exciting. It looks like we're up to 165. That's fantastic. So first of all, I want to say congrats to all of you on your award of your pollinator kits for your landscapes. It's very exciting. You're gonna join a select group of folks that have done this in past years, and it's just been a lot of fun to see the chatter among awardees as we go. So indeed, this is the Utah Pollinator Habitat Program, and I'm gonna, every time I do this, whoops, sorry, I'm gonna do that. So we're gonna go here. Nope, hang on, sorry. Okay, so tonight's agenda, just to let you know what we're going to cover. Going to quickly cover the program's origins and the summary of the program and the goals of the program. We're going to talk about the plant grow outs for this year. We're going to talk a bit about site preparation and maintenance, managing expectations. That's a big one. Dealing with native plants is kind of a different world for a lot of people. The website, we're going to talk about the website. There's a lot of information up there for you guys to pick through. We're also going to go through the plant pickup spots. So that's where you'll be able to choose where you want to pick up your plants. We have, I don't know, 5 or 6 different plant pickup spots that you can choose from. And we can talk about that further too. We've got a whole bunch of additional resources that are up on the website as well. We'll go through some of those. And then, of course, the Q&A, which is, I think, probably the most important part of this webinar. But first, before we go into anything, I wanted to sort of touch on, oh, yeah, I'm in the right spot. Sorry, my computer is doing some funky things. Anyway, we're going to talk, we're going to let Kelsey talk about why we're all here, and that's the pollinators. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kelsey. She's a research entomologist at the ARS Pollinating Insects. And yeah, we'll let her go. It's always interesting to me, Kelsey. I would love to hear your story as to how you got into pollinators and your sort of path to the ARS Pollinating Insects research lab. So I'm going to stop sharing. And you can
story.
Yeah. So go ahead and share your or start whatever you want to say. It's over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Let me get this started. All right, cool. Can everybody see my slide? Does that look right, Mindy? Is that good? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so like Mindy said, I'm Kelsey Graham. I'm a research entomologist at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Agricultural Research Service. And our unit, the Pollinating Insect Research Unit, is based mostly at USU, but we're somewhat separate. So we're in Logan, Utah. Gosh, my origin story. I mean, I just went to graduate school kind of wanting to study conservation and animals generally, and just kind of fell into a lab that ended up studying bees, and then just kind of it went from there. So yeah, I don't have a super complex origin story, but I wasn't the kid that was paying attention to insects. I didn't really notice them until graduate school. So yeah, but I kind of hope now that you guys all have these plants that are going in, that I can kind of get you guys all hyped about bees and all the great diversity of bees that you're going to see. This is a really great program, so congratulations for getting into it. I really enjoyed seeing the gardens of past awardees and just seeing how they've transformed their properties, seeing the diversity of bees that's visiting their plants and benefiting from this program. It's been really great. So yeah, so I just want to introduce you to some of the bees that you might come across. First, I just want to recognize the other amazing scientists that I work with in this unit, and one of which is Lindsay McCabe. She's another scientist, and she's on this call because she's actually one of this year's recipients, which is pretty cool. And one thing that's really special about our research unit is that most of the USDA bee labs really focus their efforts on improving the management of honeybees, whereas we really focus on researching all the other bee species and their contributions to crop production and maintaining healthy ecosystems. So we're pretty unique in that. Bees are obviously really important. Nearly 80% of flowering plant species depend on pollinators for reproduction, and the majority of pollination services are provided by bees. Additionally, more than 75% of the top global food crops depend on pollinators to get optimal yields and improve the quality of these crops. So both managed honeybees that kind of everybody knows about, but also wild bees provide these critical pollination services in agricultural and natural ecosystems. So there's around 4,000 species of bees that are native to North America. And Utah is a pretty cool place for bees. So there was recently a checklist that was published of all the bee species that we know of in Utah. And they counted 1,167 species in Utah. And for comparison, the entire eastern United States has 770 species of bees. So I came from out east. Moving to Utah is pretty cool. There's just way more species of bees, much greater diversity. So if you're into bees, this is a good place to be, and a really important place to support them. So yeah, thank you for being in this program and doing just that. But yeah, so let's get hyped about bees. So social bees are the ones that you kind of think about. These are honeybees and bumblebees, but solitary bees are what most bees are. So most bee species are solitary, not social. And these solitary bees, they have no cooperative behaviors. They build their nests on their own. And so they're quite different in terms of their life history traits. So you can kind of see this is a honeybee frame that a beekeeper is pulling out full of honeybees. This is looking inside of a bumblebee colony. And then these are nests of solitary bees. So this would be a leaf-cutting bee nest. You can see they kind of nest in these long tubes in kind of a linear fashion. They have each of their individual bees is kind of developing on its own in these cells. And ground nesting bees will develop these or create these really cool nesting tunnel structures where they end up building their nests and putting their little baby bees in there. So first, let's just quickly go over the social bees. Honeybees are the most well-known bee, but honeybees are a really weird bee. So they live in these massive colonies with really thousands of workers, like 10 to 60,000 individuals. And they have this complex social structure where they have a reproductive queen, and then they have thousands of non-reproductive worker bees. And of course, they're really unique because we manage them commercially on a really big scale. So they're trucked all over the country for crop pollination and honey production. And this also means that because we're caring for them so much and monitoring their health, we also know the most about them in terms of what diseases they have, what other stressors they have, and how to manage them. But they are actually not native to North America, and they were brought over by early European settlers. So they're this really unique bee compared to all of our native bees in North America. Bumblebees are also pretty well known. They also have a social structure, but it's a lot less structured, I guess, than honeybees. So honeybees have these like really distinct castes. Bumblebees, it's a little bit more flexible. But they're big, they're fuzzy, people notice them in their gardens, so they're easy to love. And it's also interesting, they're different from honeybees in that they have a seasonal colony. So a new queen every spring will establish a new colony, as opposed to honeybees, which have this kind of perennial, ongoing colonies that exist year to year. Okay, so now let's switch to solitary bees, and these are the ones that really have my heart. And this is also the majority of bee species. But before we dive too deep into the strictly solitary bees, I want to just talk briefly about this really massive group of bees called the sweat bees. They're often overlooked by the common, observer, but they tend to be really cool, but they're very small. So, and again, this is like a huge group of bees. They actually run like the whole gamut of sociality. So you can have social species, you can have solitary species, but they're all kind of grouped together under this one group. And again, they're pretty small, so you might not notice them, but if you start really paying attention in your garden, you'll see a lot of them. They're really common. And they often have these jewel tones, so like, greens and blues. And yeah, some nest in the ground, some nest in cavities. Super diverse group of bees. Very cool. They're called sweat bees because they might land on you and lick your sweat. It can tickle, but it's harmless. So if you ever have bees doing that, it's probably a sweat bee. Okay, but now let's move on to the strictly solitary bee groups. So the majority of bees are solitary and the majority are ground nesting. They excavate these tunnels underground and then they provision the nest with pollen and nectar. So that's what this little, orange ball is. And then they'll lay an egg on top of that provision. And then they kind of seal it off. The mom leaves and that's the end of her parental care. So there's no ongoing parental care once she lays that egg. She'll seal it up and that's it. And then the egg will hatch, and over the next year it will develop from a larva to a pupa and then finally to an adult, and then it'll crawl its way out of the ground, and that's the bee population that you'll see next year. So this is a huge aggregation of bees. These are alkali bees, and this is a ground nesting species that is native to the Western US. And it's actually managed for crop pollination in Eastern Washington, specifically for alfalfa seed pollination. So this bee, you can find it throughout the West, and it kind of naturally nests in these groups, but not generally at this density. So the growers in Washington have really tapped into this kind of natural behavior that they have and optimized these huge nesting beds and kind of made the soil exactly perfect for them so that they'll come in these huge numbers and help with crop pollination. It's just a really amazing sight to see. So you probably won't see anything like this on your properties, but if you can get these smaller groupings of bee aggregations, it's really cool to see. And I should point out that solitary bees, they really are quite harmless. They don't have a hive to protect like a honeybee or a bumblebee. So, so they likely won't sting you. They really would only sting you if you were to like grab it and squish it in your hand or squish it against your clothes. They might sting, but generally we think of them as pretty non-aggressive and safe to be around. So mining bees, these are really important, especially in the spring. So this is, again, another ground nesting bee. You can see kind of inside her nest, she's made this little provision and laid her egg, and the bee will develop in there. And a lot of them will emerge in the spring, and they're really important for the spring blooming plants. The longhorn bees, they're really cool looking because the males have these super long antennae. So yeah, they're some of my favorite just because they're really charismatic. They're also incredibly important for the pollination of sunflowers. So starting this time of year, especially in the evenings, go look in sunflowers. They're often, the males will be hanging out there because they will sleep in the sunflowers overnight. It's incredibly adorable, especially if you get a whole bunch of them. It looks like a big slumber party. So they're very cool, and definitely keep an eye out for them around this time of year. So, so that's the kind of the ground nesting bees. Now we're going to switch to the stem nesting solitary bees, or I guess cavity nesting bees. So oh, that got cut off, sorry. Leaf cutting bees are bees that will use leaf pieces to line their nests. So this is just a video of a bunch of leaf cutting bees that are nesting in these Phragmites reeds that I put out. They're very cool. So they collect leaf pieces to line their nests, and they're also managed. So the alfalfa leaf cutting bee is the most managed solitary bee. Again, it's used for alfalfa seed production, but this block is all full of bee nests. So they have thousands and thousands of leaf cutting bees that are used on alfalfa seed farms, which is just a really cool sight to see. It's neat to see solitary bees used in this fashion for crop pollination. And one way to kind of identify a leaf cutting bee is often looking at where their pollen is held. So a lot of bees, like honeybees, bumblebees, and a lot of other bees will carry pollen on their legs. But if you see pollen on the undersides of the abdomen here, you'll know that it's this kind of bigger group of bees that are leaf cutting bees, mason bees, and those related species. So that's kind of a cue in if you're trying to figure out which bee you're looking at. If you see pollen on the undersides of the abdomen, it's likely to be a leaf cutting bee or a mason bee, which I will talk about next. Oh, actually, no, I want to show you this quick picture. It's very adorable when they collect these leaf pieces for their nests. So yeah, she'll cut this like really cute little half circle, fold it up and fly it back to her nest, which is pretty amazing. So if you start seeing these in your garden, that's a really clear sign that you have leaf cutting bees around, which is great. I have a bunch of those little cuts in my roses right now. So mason bees, so as I said, they're kind of a related species to the leaf cutting bees. So they'll also carry their pollen on the undersides of their abdomen. And they're also, we have some species that are managed for crop pollination, primarily for tree and nuts, so almonds, apples, but there's also a great diversity of wild mason bees. So you're likely to see a lot of other species than just the managed ones. And they also come in these really nice jewel tones. So you've got the blues and greens. And they get their name because some of the managed species use mud as partitions. So, you know, if you have a reed here and they're kind of building from the back forward, their nests, each cell will have pollen provision and a baby bee in it. And then in between each cell is this kind of mud partition. So they're called mason bees because they use mud that way. But there's a lot of mason bees that also use leaf material, so bit of a misnomer, but that's still the common name. Carpenter bees, these are really cool because the biggest bee in the country is called a carpenter bee, but then a very small bee is also called a carpenter bee. And that's just because both of them excavate their nests, which is kind of unusual. So most cavity nesting bees use existing cavities, whereas these ones will dig out their own nesting structures. So Xylocopa, these are the really big bees. So if you see any of these, especially Salt Lake and south of there, these are the biggest bees you will see. There's also some Xylocopa, some carpenter bees that are smaller than that, but these are the really big guys. And they're very charismatic, but they are the ones that are probably nesting in the side of your decking or your barn. So they can be kind of problematic, but they're very cool to watch. So if it's in an area of your property that you don't mind a little bit of holes in the siding, I would say keep them around. They're really neat to watch. And again, they're non-aggressive. So. The dwarf carpenter bees, much smaller, very, very tiny, and they tend to nest in like pithy stems. They like raspberry bushes, so things like that. So if you have, raspberries, I think I've seen them in roses. So anything that they kind of can dig down into this stem, you'll see them nesting in there. Okay, so I kind of want to switch gears and just say, how can we support the bees? We see how cool they are now. So how can we support them going forward? Bees face a host of stressors, including pesticide exposure, pathogens, poor nutrition, and parasites. And for managed bees like honeybees, we can try to alleviate these stressors, through management strategies. But I should say being a beekeeper right now is really hard. It's becoming harder, it's becoming more expensive as kind of all of these stressors compound and we have interactions that make it even worse. So it's hard to keep bees right now. But we're kind of thinking more about the wild bees for this project or for this program. And for wild bees, many of the stressors are similar, but I would say one of the biggest ones is habitat loss. And that just means less food, less nesting. If you take, a habitat that's perfect and lovely for bees and you put in a housing complex with no flowers, no nesting habitat, that's hard for bees to survive and thrive there. So we're looking for, opportunities to add in flowers and adding nesting habitat. So this is just, I was up in the Uintas and I caught osmia actually leaving, it's a exit hole of a beetle borer that it's using as its nest, which was a fun find to see. So one of the things that you can do to support bees on your property is to provide nesting habitats. Many bees will nest in hollow and pithy stems, as I kind of indicated. So think flowers, but also bushes. So you can cut those back in your garden, often in the fall, and then leave the stems for bees to nest in for future years. So try and provide a variety of stem heights and diameters, and remember that the bees are hopefully nesting in them. So, don't cut them and then pull them out of your yard the next summer, because hopefully you're going to get some bees nesting in there in the spring and summer. You can also leave some down logs and brush piles if you have the space on your property. And just remember that the majority of bees nest in the ground. So leaving just undisturbed bare soil is probably the easiest thing that you can do. But remember that, you really need it to be bare soil. So no landscaping fabric, no mulch. And that's just a great way of getting bees to nest near your flowers. And I should always say, don't be discouraged if you do all these things and then you don't really see any nesting. They may be nesting and you just don't see them. Or sometimes bees are just really picky. Like I've put out a bare patch of ground and I've never seen a bee nest in it. Sometimes I'll think it's perfect, but then, the bees have their own decision-making process. So I would say kind of look around your property and try to find areas where you already see bees nesting. And those are the best places to kind of try and protect and keep as nesting habitat. And of course, the entire diet of a bee is from flowers. So with no flowers, there's no bees. So the number one thing you can do is provide them with safe food. And that also means not using pesticides. But yeah, this program is really set up perfectly for that. It's set up for you guys to put in all these flowers and support all these diverse bees. And yeah, I just thank you so much for being a part of the program and helping bees out. And my contact information is up here. If people ever want to reach out and just have random bee questions, I'm happy to chat. So yeah.
Fantastic. Hey, I'm thinking, I'm sort of watching the chat, and a couple of questions. Those bee hotels that are sold in various places, how do you feel about those?
Yeah, I feel mixed because I think they're really cool opportunities often to kind of observe bees and see them nesting. But a lot of them are designed really badly. So a lot of them are like way too shallow in depth. A lot of them are to the point where it's really hard to clean them. So most bee hotels, you really want to clean them out every year to avoid buildup of diseases and pests. So I think, I'm very mixed about them because I do think they're a really cool opportunity to see cavity nesting bees nest, but they can also be kind of a bit of a trap if you're not really careful about how you select the bee hotel and whether or not you're able to clean it out every year. And there's a lot of resources online if you want to like look up how to build your own bee hotel and how to take care of it. I think that's the best option.
Great. And then another question that I thought was a good one. So heavy mulch, what is a good amount of mulch, or what is not too heavy for a bee to make their way down through and into the ground?
Yeah, so you really need to be able to see the soil underneath. A bit of mulch they can deal with and get around, but if you can't see the soil, then the bee is unlikely to be able to get to it too. So, yeah.
Okay, good to know. Thank you so much. It's always so much fun to hear about, and yeah, yeah, and I'm sure we'll have some more questions if you can stick around.
Yep.
If not, you did put your information up, so.
Yep, I'm gonna stick around. All right.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I'm going to continue on here. Is everybody seeing the origins of the Utah Pollinator Habitat Program? This maybe I should just stick to one screen. But anyway, so just a little bit. So 2021, Representative Ashley Matthews came up with a pollinator pilot program. So it was meant to be for 3 years and 3 years only, just to try to get some education out about pollinators, essentially. So it was meant to be $70,000 each year. It was for public education and outreach, and to distribute pollinator-friendly native seeds and plants, and the native is bolded there. We definitely want to concentrate on the native. And they wanted us to start a grant program to show 25% of cost from the state and then 75% from awardees. I think that has changed, but that's, anyway, we wanted to, I keep mixing up years, sorry. So we have not sent out a survey as to how much all of you have been spending on this, and that's going to be, any irrigation supplies, certainly any labor that has gone into it, all that kind of stuff. So we'll be sending out that later on, probably in the fall. So we did receive additional funding in 2023 to get us through that 3-year pilot program. And then this year, we did get ongoing funding from the legislature. So it is a program that is inked, I guess, for lack of better words now. So it is, continues to be a statewide effort to improve pollinator outlook. And so that's, both pollinator diversity as well as pollinator abundance. So, and we may see some changes in the program just depending on a whole bunch of different things. And so in that regard, we're able to hire a full-time program manager, and that is Liz Hamilton. And Liz is here with us. Liz, do you want to introduce yourself? I think once you chat, I think your speaker box will come up.
Yeah, hi, thanks for the introduction. And Kelsey, thanks so much for your presentation. It was really great. My name's Liz. I'm really excited to be the new UDAF program manager for this, UDAF Pollinator Habitat Program Manager. Just a little bit about me. I'm originally from the East Coast, but I have been in Utah for about 19 years now. So almost getting to the point where I might be in Utah for longer than I was on the East Coast. I've been involved since I've been in Utah in several different conservation areas, doing different things. Most recently, I have been with the UDAF as the Water Optimization Assistant Program Manager, and that's a program where we help farmers identify ways they can save water on their farms. And I know I've got some really big shoes to fill here. Mindy and her whole team have just been incredible in growing this program and really getting it up and running. And so big props to you guys, and I'm just really looking forward to getting to know all the past awardees and the new awardees and seeing everybody's projects grow and building the program even more if we can through the years.
Fantastic. Yeah, so glad to have someone, over the entire program full time, which has not been the case. So this is our team to date. My name is Mindy Wheeler. I probably should have said that a while ago. Sorry. I am Native Plant Conservation Project Leader is my title. I'm a USU employee, but I am housed at the Division of Wildlife Resources. Becky Yeager's also on the call. Jennifer Dowd will be helping out. She was instrumental in the from the get-go. Miriam is with us. Jim Bocut is Liz's boss, and so he's been involved. Cherie Edgington is with UDAF as well. She's been watching our money pretty carefully, thankfully. Jim Spencer with NRCS has also been instrumental in helping us decide which species to choose. Liz Hamilton, of course, has been involved. And apologies to SUU folks. They have been really rising up to the challenge and really helping out a lot too. There's a number of people at SUU that have been helping out as well. And Hala Patino, I'm sorry, senior, and Matt Ogburn, Sam Wells, and Frederick Govidich or something like that. Anyway, they've been great. So program summary and goals, again, I'm just going to sort of fly through these because I think we probably, a lot of us want to get to Q&A. So the goal over those 3 years was to put 90,000 plants and 18 million native seeds in the ground. It sounds like a lot, but in 1 pound of some species of native seed is 11 million seeds in 1 pound. So that's obviously not all species. I think we have hit 90,000 plants. I think we might, yeah, we have had 131,000 plants grown out over the past 3 years. And of course we have more in the greenhouse now. These are just some statistics. We've had 1,154 applicants and 679 awardees. And a total of 41 acres, and that comes from, you all know how you drew your project areas, so we just pulled that together in ArcGIS and came upon the number. So that comes to about 29 million gallons of water over traditional lawn, right? And these, I had to look at that like 3 times, but these are the numbers that were given to us in terms of how much water is saved from the Division of Water Resources. So, you know, I checked with them like 3 times. I was like, can this really be right? But so that was exciting to learn. There we go. And then, you know, why the focus on native plants? And it comes down to what our pollinators are adapted to. So it's sort of again, pollinators I feel are sort of well, they are the base of the food chain, right? So what they have adapted to, and so everything else has sort of adapted to those local conditions as well in terms of, you know, precipitation, temperature, all that kind of stuff. And the native pollinators, of course, again, it's just sort of getting into the idea, it's sort of the base of the food chain that is really important for the rest of the ecological web. Let's see. And as Kelsey touched upon, pollinators are kind of facing some declines, and it's due to those things that Kelsey mentioned, invasive species and pesticides. And native bees can be outcompeted by introduced honeybees. That's I think that's something I was looking through Kelsey's list of publications, and I think there was something in there about that, and maybe we can touch on that later. And then as I was, you know, last count I was at 1,000, but 1,167 I think it was. So pretty exciting. So this Doug Tallamy is really starting this movement called Bringing Nature Home. It's also Nature's Best Hope, and I think it's National Park at Home or something like that. But he is a real advocate of using native species, and we had him do a webinar for us in March, and the link to that webinar is on our website. It's really interesting and such a great webinar. So I encourage all of you to go listen to that. That was a good get to get him to do a webinar for us. So just want to say congrats again. It's a very exciting journey that you all are about to embark upon. So all of our plants are currently being grown at the State Correctional Facility. They do a wonderful job, and they're all so thankful to have a purpose and have a job to go to every day. So it's a lot of fun to go out there. I was out there today to take a look at the plants and how they're coming along. So this year we did have 28 people from 28 of 29 counties apply. Morgan was the only county that we didn't get this year, which Interesting. So we did have 515 applicants and 386 awardees. So not everybody. So you guys, again, congratulations. So this is a number of kits, 1,875 kits, which is about 56,000 plants. Wetland kits, about 24,000 plants. So we're growing out at least 80,000 plants right now, or they are. And most are in those 10 cubic inch grow tubes, which are, this tall. They are, I have to say, they can be kind of a pain to get those plants out of there, but we do those just so they will grow a longer and better root system. So, and that's, a lot of how a lot of these native plants survive is that they have very deep root systems. There we go. Encourages a deep root system. So what will a successful project look like? Well, that, I think somewhere in here, it's the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? I understand all those different methods and sort of approaches that people take to their landscape. A lot of people like nice little neat groupings with some bare ground or mulch in between. I have sort of let my landscape go and just have let the native plants just do everything on their own. And so I don't really have any nice neat groupings. So again, it's beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So in order to be a good pollinator habitat, we are really shooting for 3 to 5 species to be blooming in each season, so spring, summer, and fall, so that we provide pollinators with food and some shelter throughout the growing season. And it has been fun. There has been a lot of chatter. We do have a Facebook group. There's been a lot of chatter about people seeing different pollinators within their habitats, increased diversity. It's been a lot of fun to see. And these are some of the things that have been showing up. So the plants that we've chosen to are, of course, perennials. And so the hope is that they will produce seed and reseed themselves, as well as come back each year. So, and then the other aspect of a good pollinator habitat is increased bird activity, which has been just a lot of fun to watch as well. My Zauschneria right now, I can't remember the common name, sorry. The hummingbirds just love that Zauschneria. And then the other thing, if you're new to native plants, it's kind of a different animal. So patience is key. So if you don't think it's doing well, just, hang in there and, keep watching it, and it might just reappear. It's just, nature doesn't like a vacuum, right? So something wants to fill that space. So just be patient with it. And again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Site preparation and maintenance. Boy, weeds are, it's a fact of life, right? Weeds are just always going to be an issue. I tell you, the bindweed this year is just, I don't know what it is, but this year the bindweed is just has been so difficult. But do the best as you can to control the weeds on your site as best you can before you get your plants. And then we do ask that you install the plants within 1 or 2 weeks of receiving. And we can also talk about that when we talk about the dates for pickup. And avoid, of course, the use of pre-emergents and pesticides. That's hopefully somewhat self-explanatory. The one thing I did want to mention, I did see some chat among people about, can we add other things to our pollinator habitat? And the answer is yes, certainly. Just be aware that some big box stores may use neonicotinoids, which is a type of pesticide. And, I would just recommend that maybe you ask the nursery manager whether the growers use those neonicotinoids. And if they don't know, I might go elsewhere. So just ask, and if they don't know, I would probably try to find somewhere else. Avoid use of weed barrier, those landscape cloths. I mean, they are good for a few years anyway to control your weeds, but it'll come back to haunt you. And of course, we want to provide that bare ground to the bees, the ground nesting bees. Mulch is better, leaf litter is best. So we also go with the saying of leave the leaves. And again, sometimes that takes a switch in terms of, having a nice, neat garden and wanting to rake up all those leaves. But it does provide some great cover for some pollinators. Figuring out your irrigation. All of them work. Hand water, sprinkler, drip, they all work. Just make sure that they are indeed working how you intend. And then plants will need a sort of a gradual taping off of water. And we do have some recommendations. I think I'll get into that a bit. And yeah, some other tips about that. So hoping to get a firm root system and then letting them go dormant for the winter. So you want to make them all nice and comfy in their new home before the winter sets in. And hopefully if this heat will break, hope, that, maybe we'll get some precipitation in the fall after you plant them. But managing expectations. Again, this is a big one. Patience, again, sometimes, again, it just takes them a while to get comfortable in their new home. And, sometimes, and again, on the Facebook group, sometimes it's just a lot of fun to watch people. They are taking photos of these little leaves, cotyledons that are coming up that they swore that it was dead last year, but it wasn't. So just be patient. Don't give up. And then again, reaching this equilibrium, nature hates a vacuum, right? And so things will sort of come in, ebb and flow. And I guess my thought would just be to sort of roll with it and just take fun or have a lot of fun with it and just watch it grow and change and see what kind of pollinators you're bringing in. Yeah, just try to roll with it as best you can. And each site is indeed different, so not all plants will thrive. And, sometimes it's just, it's either not the right place or maybe you forgot about it or, so, but there's also some plants that could very well exceed those expectations. Don't give up on your starts. Again, these native plants do put down a lot of roots, and so maybe there's enough roots to put something up the next spring. So no signs of rebound, just wait a little bit longer. I know it's difficult. I am also one of those that looks for that instant gratification in your landscape, but try to take a step back. And then are some species within the kits that are sort of later season. So some of these plants won't even emerge. I think we got a lot of comments on the desert 4 o'clock not coming up. Well, it won't come up in April or May like a lot of other things. It will come up much later in May, in June, maybe. And so again, don't give up on it. It's just, that's how it's programmed. That's what it's programmed to do. It comes up later in the season. And then again, some will bloom the first year and some won't and will bloom later. So, and this is, I don't know, warm, cool season grasses. I'm going to skip that. It's sort of along the same lines as what I was saying about the desert 4 o'clock, is that some of those grasses will look dead, but they are programmed to start turning green much later in the spring or even early summer. So navigating the website. So hopefully people have been on that website already. There's a lot of information up there. There's some potential species you'll be receiving in your habitat, and things are still sort of taking shape at the prison, so we can't definitively say which species you'll be getting, but what we can do, I think we can probably maybe put some stars or give some sort of communication as to what the kit will look like, and then how to find info on the plant species. We'll get to that in a minute. We do have a planting guide and a maintenance guide up there. Just some tips and tricks. There's a layout design out there if you're looking for some ideas as to how to group things or whatever. Some weed management stuff. Watering frequencies is also up there, and we can touch on that further as well. And then there's a whole bunch of additional resources. We have books to read or other websites to go to. So poke around in there. You can likely get lost in there. So this, that's, sorry for the cattywampus there. So this is sort of just some of the wetland and upland kits. This year, UDAF doesn't want us to give out milkweed, so we are holding back on those this year. But this is some of the species that will be available to you. The native plant info sheets, again, these are up.
Those who need to evacuate have been notified.
Sorry. This are the info sheets also up on the website. They're the PDFs that show how much water they need, what wildlife, what pollinators are supported. It's sort of its native range. So all of these are available up on the website as well. These are the maintenance and planting guides that are up on the website. And again, if you can't find them, just let us know. We can point you to those. So design layout considerations. Again, I am not a landscape architect. So this, consider these things as you're thinking about planting. So on those planting sheets, it will tell you how tall and wide those plants will get. It will tell you the bloom times of them. It will tell you how far they will spread. Is it generally, does it disperse by seeds, or is it rhizomatous, meaning does it have some underground connections from plant to plant? And again, depending on what kind of gardener you are, I guess you can, map out your planting to maximize your project space. And then, so edge effect, it's just trying to create some of that habitat diversity, so all pollinators can sort of find what they need in different areas of your landscape. Watering patterns is something else to, like, I have put some of the plants that require a little bit more water. I have put them down, or put them near my downspout from the roof. Or I also have a neighbor that waters a lot, and I put some of the plants that require more water closer to that neighbor. So far it's working. Hopefully the neighbor doesn't move, right? Access to exposed ground for ground nesting bees again. And again, refer to the resources online. And again, this is your garden. Make it what you want. Do what you will with it, and just have fun with it. And then again, the Facebook group page is just fantastic. There has been a lot of chatter between awardees to help one another, like what is this, or what has helped everybody else. in their landscapes. It's been a lot of fun to watch that. Google and Pinterest have loads of ideas. Yeah, I mean, you can get lost, but don't get too lost. Just again, have fun with it. We do have a sample landscape there for you, just for some ideas. Weed management. So I would recommend you really got to know your weeds in each season, in every season. What does bindweed look like in the spring versus the fall? What does Canada thistle look like? What does Dyer's woad look like in each of the seasons? So it's really good to know your weeds very well. Planting guide and maintenance guide for more insight. And again, I think maybe it's the 8th time that we've mentioned, please avoid that weed barrier. Again, I've seen some of those ground nesting bees come out of my bare ground, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And this, again, some of the plants will have hollow stems, so don't cut them all the way down. Leave them cut in your landscape, and so you can provide those tubes like Kelsey was talking about for them to lay their eggs and let them develop in there. Watering frequencies, again, refer to the planting and maintenance guides. We can talk about this further in our Q&A. So there are some species that really don't like extra water. The penstemons, you might be fooled. They will do well with like the first or second season, they'll do very well with extra water, but then they just sort of just grow and grow, and then you'll get nothing. So I would really recommend holding off on the water on the penstemons, the Sphaerosia, and the northern sweetvetch. So they will be coming from that greenhouse. They will be hardened off to some degree, but again, you'll have to sort of wean them appropriately after you pick them up. And this is generally what we recommend every other day. And again, this is really dependent on the weather. Again, hopefully we'll get some rain at some point soon. And after you receive these, so every other day for the first 1 or 2 weeks, and then keep sort of extending that between waterings over week 3. And again, very dependent on what the fall weather is going to do. And then once a week until winter dormancy. So here are the pickup spots and times. This is also on our calendar on the website, so don't worry about having to write these down. Saturday, September 6th will be sort of the northern counties, so there will be a pickup in Logan, a pickup in Park City, and a pickup in Roosevelt on the 6th of September. And again, these are on our website, so don't worry about writing these down. On the 13th, we added one this year that will be at Ogden, at the DWR office in Ogden, for some of you on the sort of northern Wasatch Front. And then Cedar City will also do one on September 13th. We heard some of our awardees from last year that it was a little too late last year. So we're going to allow folks to pick up, some folks to pick up their plants in Cedar City on the 13th of September. The big one is going to be September 20th at the Bastion Agricultural Center, which is in South Georgia. So and we will give further directions to that, just because it's kind of a big area and you sort of have to find your way around to it, but we will give directions when that time comes. October 4th, the Moab distribution, and that is when some of the southern counties will probably want to pick up. The Washington County, Kane County, Garfield County maybe will want to pick up then. But again, you guys know your sites better, and so that southern folks down in Cedar City area can choose whether they want to pick up in mid-September or early October. Here's some additional resources. Again, this is going to be, we will post this webinar up on our website as well, so don't worry about getting any of these down. So there's a lot of information out there. So on Monday, we're looking to send out another email. So just know that it's coming. You will be asked where you want to pick up your habitat kits. And you will also be asked whether you want a pollinator habitat sign or not. And I think we should also have a contract for you at that time as well to hopefully sign online. Yeah, and I think, I don't know, maybe Miriam can answer this, but I think we have sort of changed our ways a little bit, and hopefully things aren't going to spam boxes anymore. So we had a few issues with that last year. So hopefully just make sure that, you know, you accept emails from that email address. And I think I am going to stop talking now. I'm going to stop sharing, and maybe we'll start with a few maybe common questions. If Becky or Miriam or Liz or Ben have some of the common questions that we want to talk about.
Yeah, there's some discussion on the milkweed, so maybe Liz could explain why that's been removed. There's just some questions about it that Liz, you probably saw. Maybe you could
Yeah.
cover more.
I did try to respond to some of them, but we had quite a few. So, so there just had been some concern from some landholders that milkweed is toxic to livestock and that potentially planting this could spread seed. I'm hopeful that in future funding years, after not this year, but after some discussion internally, that we can offer it again. If you don't own livestock or you don't have pets that are going to chew on it, it is fine for you to grow, and we encourage you to do so. We just are unable to provide it at this time. It is very important for monarchs, and there are several nurseries around the state that do provide that, and seed is available online.
Great. There's also, Mindy, I don't know if we want to get into this. There's a very heated discussion about using the prison to grow the plants. And I just was wondering if you could share. I've been in and out of the greenhouses, and I've met some of the inmates, and it's just really been a great experience. Can you share some of your thoughts, or maybe explain the horticulture program at the greenhouse and some of your experiences?
Sure. I'm not sure what the heated discussion is about. I haven't been watching that, but so the horticultural program at the State Correctional Facility is a very competitive program to get into. So they have to, you know, have certain certain hurdles. I think that I don't know how to describe it, but certain hurdles that they have to cross in order to be part of that program. And all of the inmates that I have spoken to are just so thankful to be part of that program. They they have a database that is better than the databases for their seed and tracking their seed. They have a database that is better than anything that we have, and they really take pride in being able to grow some stuff that other nurseries have not been able to grow. And it's yeah, I am not, anyway, I'm not sure what the issues are, but I look forward to those visits because they are so thankful for being able to participate in that program. And they have like eight brand new greenhouses that state-of-the-art greenhouses that they grew out there. So
I can kind of piggyback on that a little bit too. Some of the questions were if it is unpaid labor or not. So in addition to being able to apply for that program and it is highly competitive internally, they also come away with it with a nationally recognized certification in horticulture if they're able to complete the program, and they are paid. That whole program is funded and supported by, and the rules are set legislatively. That has nothing to do with our program in particular. We are just beneficiaries of being able to partner with them on this growing. And it's, as Mindy said, they really enjoyed that opportunity, and our experiences have all been really great.
Great. We've had a couple of questions about grass removal in preparation for their plantings. Do you want to share some ideas and maybe successes and failures that we've had in our pollinator projects, such as solarization?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's certainly a couple of different ways to go about it. We did try solarization at one of our projects, and I think solarization works better on smaller areas, and you got to cook that grass and the earth beneath it for a number of weeks in order to really, in order for it to really work. What I did, and there's another, I think a lot of people just don't water their lawns for a summer, and then it will summer or two, and it will die out on its own, and then you can likely just plant into that. And I would frankly probably just plant into dead grass instead of what I have tried in the past, is doing a sod cutter and flipping it over. So you have sort of a what I thought of as a cleaner slate, but boy, I'm not sure. I think that might have encouraged more weeds. So take that as you may. And another, if you're comfortable using glyphosate or Roundup on your grass, that's another way to go. I would, depending on the grass too, I might do that even twice, do the Roundup and then wait maybe 3 weeks and see what survived. So, and then do it again. So those are my thoughts on that, I guess. So.
Okay, let's see, we have a question about the commitment of the program awardees. Like, what is the commitment once they get their plants?
So generally the commitment at that point is, I think in the application process, we ask that you would be willing to answer our surveys for the next 3 years in terms of what is doing well, what is not doing well. We also ask a question as to whether you would allow some of our folks to collect some of the seed that you might not want, that maybe we could use for the program for growing out some more plants. So that's generally the commitment, is letting us know how the plants that you got received, and there'll be questions as to what's doing well, what's not doing well. This is how you said in your application that you would maintain and prepare for your site. Has anything changed, anything of that nature? So I think that's the major commitment.
Okay.
I see Mary has a hand up. Mary. Yeah, let me see.
If we can find her to unmute her.
Yeah, I think I think
Okay.
you're unmuted, Mary.
Yeah, if it's okay, I just wanted to volunteer to help connect Liz, especially, I guess, if you want to talk with some landowners and ag producers that we work with at Sageland. We do a lot of riverscape restoration, and we have those livestock growers who are really eager to have milkweed on their property. And I think what I'm hearing from them is just making sure when you're haying areas that you don't get milkweed seed in them. And so I think there's, there might be some nuance to that, but happy to like do some tailgate conversations if you want to connect with folks so we can kind of clear up how we can safely get milkweed out there and make sure we keep livestock safe too. So happy to chat and volunteer time to connect you with folks if you're interested.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love that opportunity. Appreciate it.
It's great, Mary. I know we've got a couple other hands raised, but before we get to those raised hands, I just wanted to kind of cover soil types. There's some concern that some recipients are concerned that they might need to amend their soil. We've got people with sandy soil and clay soil. What would you recommend for amendments, if at all?
So this is where I think some of the nuances come in terms of some plants might do well in your area, some plants may not. But generally, in terms of amendment, I would kind of avoid that. I know penstemons really don't like any extra nutrients whatsoever, and generally amendments will include nutrients. So I'm not sure I would add that step, I guess, because a lot of these native plants are very adept at dealing with the soil types that they're giving. So that they're given. So and that's, again, one of the reasons why we like to use native plants is that they are adapted to our soils and our conditions and whatever those soils may bring. So I would try to avoid that if you could. So, I mean, and again, there's a lot of nuances to that in terms of, I know in my backyard, I have clay in it that is seriously, it could be used as modeling clay. It's ridiculous. But the plants seem to do okay with what I've planted. So, yeah, I would sort of, yeah, again, there's some nuances to that. What I also might recommend is maybe experiment a little with it, but I wouldn't go whole hog on it. You know what I mean? I might try a little bit here and there with the plants that you're given and see what happens. I just, again, I think most of these plants are pretty well adapted to the soils, the native soils that we have. So.
One of the things I was going to mention, and we also have a question about it, is how do you get the plants out of those little tubes? I know past recipients have complained a little bit about the tubes, but remember that we use the tube so that we get a really deep root system. There is a tutorial on the Facebook page. It's pinned to the top, so take some time and look at that tutorial before you get your plants and get started putting them in the ground. And basically you just sort of push the tube down and roll it, and then take a stick and pop it out from the bottom. So you don't want to pull it by the plant itself because you'll destroy the roots. So do take some time to look at the tutorial. Okay, then you've got some raised hands, Mandy.
I have a Lauren and a Laura.
Hello. My question was about documentation. So, are the only times that we're reporting when we get the surveys?
Yes.
Okay. And
Yeah.
with the documentation, are we just on our own needing to make sure that we're kind of writing all that stuff down, since of course we won't remember it all, just I wish. Or do we get an actual document that says, track this, here, and then kind of we're filling that out. That way, once the survey comes, we're ready, or how does that work?
So the survey will come, I think we just sent it out for past awardees and their reports, quote unquote. It's just it's a survey that you just fill out online. and it's due, I think, I don't know, mid-August, I can't remember. But the main thing is, do you remember those before pictures that you took to show us your property as to what it looks like now? So we are working on a way to be able to get those photos back to you, and then you can take the same exact photo, you know, a year later, right? And just so we can see what has happened with that piece of land in terms of what, you know, before it was a lawn and now it's this beautiful, you know, pathway with some other beautiful native plants in it. So so the other thing that I'm trying to think, did we hand out the list of plants to awardees last year, Beck?
No, we referred them to the website. We didn't have, because we often don't know how many of each species will be in the habitat kits until we get to distribution and are putting those habitat kits together. But the best we can do is just put the completed list on the website, and so you can check there to see exactly what species will be in the northern kits versus the southern kits.
Right. So it's not I don't know if I'm making it sound a little laborious, but it's really not that big of a deal to report to us every year. And we understand that, you know, and again, maybe that's where the Facebook page really comes in handy, is that if you don't know what this plant is, just take a picture of it, put it up on Facebook, and somebody on the Facebook page will be able to answer you in terms of what that plant is. So, yeah, it shouldn't be laborious. So don't worry about it too much. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you, that does.
Good. Kristen, otters and other, sorry, I'm just, and other
That's
something,
okay.
zoo animals or something. I'm not seeing the whole thing. So
You're okay. So I had the question in the chat, and maybe it's more of just my take on it for future contracts. So we've been awarded it. This will be our 3rd year. So we appreciate all the hard work you guys have done and the outcome. Couple months ago, though, on the Facebook group, we noticed that there was an awardee from last year who got it and then decided to redo their front yard. And so they did offer up the plants to everyone, which is beyond kind. It was grateful. We were able to go up and get just more flaxseed and a few things. But with that, and now with it being a permanent grant, it might be a little different, but is there a commitment within the contract that states, I mean, that you can't, I feel like there should be that you can't rip up your yard. And I know you can't predict that, but this was a cosmetic one, not a necessity. And so it's just frustrating to see, you know, all of the hard work and the fundraising and the grant money for 6 months, and then to be, I guess maybe could be used in other ways differently. I don't know if I'm verbalizing that correctly.
no, it's a good point. I mean, it's a tough one because yeah, because I mean, it's to me, it maybe becomes a private property issue, right? Where we can't really get that involved, because I know of an awardee who ended up having to sell her house, right? And so, you know, you can't really put any demands on the new homeowner that you can't destroy or you can't disturb, or you really have to take care of this piece of their property, right? So I understand the frustration, and I you know, share that frustration. I think we're kind of limited in what we can do, especially, you know, on people's private property. So
Yeah, no, I guess for new people, I guess I would just encourage the commitment that hopefully you're not redoing your yard or that area in the next 2-3 years or anything like that, I guess. So I just wanted to share that take. I apologize to take time.
No, thank you. I appreciate your sharing that and your concern. I
Thank
see
you.
Soren Simonson's hand up.
Thank you, Mindy. This might have been answered in the chat, but I have had a hard time following everything. So I live in Salt Lake County, and I see that the pickup location is South Jordan on the 20th of September. I'm actually closer to the Park City pickup location at the Swanner Nature Center, and may be able to work it into my schedule better on September 6th. Can I pick up plants there if that's more convenient, or do I need to pick them up only in the South Jordan location on that date and time?
No, that's fine. We have been able to accommodate that and understand that that's sometimes the case. So it does throw us for a little bit of a loop, but we can handle it.
Okay. It sounds like we'll coordinate that offline. I'll probably be able to make it work in South Jordan. I just like the convenience of going to the closer location, and it works better with my schedule. But if I need to do South Jordan, I'll make it work.
Yeah, again, I think we can probably accommodate that.
Okay.
So it's many, but not all of the same species. So we could probably accommodate that.
Okay.
Let's see. I see a Hunter and Megan. Hand up.
Hold on a sec. Sorry. How do I get this to go? Okay. Maybe you can hear me. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, so I have a question about compost. What are your thoughts about adding compost down before planting? Is it good or bad? What are your thoughts on that?
Compost, I guess it depends where you're getting your compost, and how rich it is in nutrients. I think for the most part compost is okay. I wouldn't put too much down, but it can be a good soil addition. I just know we have gotten compost from various places, and sometimes it comes with all sorts of goodies in it, like bindweed. So just be careful of your source, I guess. So
Okay.
yeah. I hope
other,
that helps. Yeah.
Make sure
Yes, the other
your
question-
compost is well composted. If it's done correctly, there shouldn't be any weed seed in it, but not every place takes care of their compost the way they should. So using a reputable source is really pretty key if you're going to get good compost.
Perfect. The other question to that also, it has to do with solarization. So we're solarizing our grass. So do you want to put like dirt on top of the grass after it's dead? Do you leave the dead grass? I'm not sure where to go from after the grass is dead, I guess. Thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that are, I don't think additional, I mean, you could certainly put compost on top of that. I wouldn't necessarily think it's possible. I think one of the things, Beck, maybe you can talk about this. Did you put like digging relatively big holes and then putting some compost in the hole? What was your thoughts on that, Becca? Am I remembering correctly?
For which area?
So yeah, if she has solarized,
Oh, yeah.
would you put compost on top of that? Or would you just plant into the dead grass? Or would you like selectively put compost in some of those holes where they're planting?
That's a good question. I tend to not dig very big holes because I don't want to disturb the soil too much. And so I'd probably, maybe dress it with compost on top. Would
Okay.
probably be what I would do.
Okay, N, I have an N
Yes.
with
Hi.
hand up.
So I recognize that the prison question I was asking in chat, you guys don't have the answer here, so I'm going to talk to Liz. I just want to say that I also don't appreciate how people were treating me in the comments. Not cool. My questions are valid and very relevant to the program at hand. Anyway, I do have a question about the garden. So essentially, I was wondering about like irrigation. So when I'm looking to irrigate, how close to like how many like lines do I want to have? How close should they be? Like what should that look like? I've never set up an irrigation system before, so I was just wanting to ask more about that.
Right, yeah, and that's a tough one too, in terms of sort of not knowing your design, and then so there's different types of emitters, and this is something that we in the program have talked about improving and helping people with their drip systems, because there's different types of emitters that you can get, something that you can put on an, yeah, this is probably going to get a little too technical, but you can get something on a 1/4-inch line that'll just serve as a little sprinkler that you can move around, which helps. Some emitters, can emit 1 gallon an hour. Some can emit a lot less than that. So it kind of depends. It also depends on what soil type you have. So if you drip something in sandy soil, it's just the water's gonna go down, right? But if you have clay soil, it's gonna sort of creep sideways a little bit, right? And so some of those plants beside it can grab some of that water. So it's really, a lot of it is really site dependent. So and also some of the plants in the kit will not like or want any extra water, and some will benefit from some extra water. So if you sort of pay attention to the plant PDF sheets, you can sort of try to organize your garden that way. So yeah, it looks like somebody answered some part of the sprinkler supply. Yeah, and hopefully we can. It's going to take a little time to figure out. But what I really like is the little emitters that you can put on a 1/4-inch line that becomes just a tiny sprinkler. That way you can kind of see where the water's going, how deep it gets, all that kind of stuff, and you can move that sprinkler around. That's what I've done anyway. So hopefully that helps. Okay, couple more. Let's go to Heather.
Hi, can you hear me? My question is about when I applied, I had 5 locations that I was asking for kits for, and I was awarded a smaller number of kits than what I applied for. Can I just choose which locations, which sites to not include, or because I didn't see any information from them on which sites were approved?
I think that might be a conversation that we can maybe take offline. I would have to look into that, and I think the short answer is yes, you can choose. We just need to know what that choice is.
Sure. So maybe just send a follow-up email with that designated area.
That would be great. That would be great. Okay, thanks. Anything else in the chat, Beck, that you wanna? Oh, Bonnie?
Yes, I have a question. I'm sorry, I couldn't figure out how to do the little hand.
Yeah.
I couldn't find all of you for 20 minutes. We've been trying to
We got you, Bonnie.
So sorry. So quick question. So will the plants be hardened when we get them? Because we're going to have to schedule our planners, our gardeners to come. Will they be hardened? And if so, do we store them in the shade or keep them in the shade? So I don't want them to get damp or be until they're planted.
Right, right. They will be somewhat hardened. I think when you get them, you can, keep them in the partial shade maybe, and just keep them wet because they do dry out pretty quickly in those small tubes.
So you can add water to those tubes?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
okay, great.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So,
great.
yeah, those should be able to sit in those tubes again until you're ready to plant. But again, we're hoping for, within 1 to 2 weeks, getting them in the ground from when you pick up your
Right.
plants. So,
Thank you. Thank
okay.
you.
Yeah, great. Let's see, question from Lo.
Yeah, thank you. Someone asked a question earlier about deer, a lot of year-round deer that come through, and we have the same problem. Any comments about that?
Oh, somebody had to bring it up, right? I tell you, the deer have really done me in this year. I had so many Wasatch Penstemon coming up, and they took them all. So in order to get them going, and depending on how many deer come through, what a friend of mine did that was helpful is to create little cages out of chicken wire. But of course, that's a lot of cages to create. So I don't know if you could kind of protect the whole area for at least a little while until they're big enough and can handle a little nibble here and there, because deer, especially in the fall, they get pretty hungry. They will try everything. And they will pick it up, they'll pull the whole thing out of the ground, decide they don't like it, and spit it out. And then you'll come out and you'll see this whole desiccated plant with the root ball and everything on top of your planted hole, or your hole that you dug for it. So if you think that deer are going to be a problem, I would do what you can to protect your newly planted stuff, because they're pretty well fed and grown in the greenhouse, so they're going to smell pretty darn good to a hungry deer. So do what you can. And I know it could be asking a lot, but again, it does happen. We did have an awardee that lost most of the plants to deer, and she has applied again, and she I don't know, again, maybe that's a Facebook page question that you could ask what other people have done. I don't know if there's supposedly powdered coyote pea out there too that might help people, that people have tried pepper spray. So that might be a question for the Facebook group to see what has worked and potentially what hasn't worked for some others.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah. All right. Sandra. There you go.
To answer the deer question, we are in a restoration of an orchard, and we have used deer fencing around the trees, which has been very effective. And we're planning and have already planted our plants inside of those cages, so they're around the base of the trees. And so I would recommend deer fencing rather than chicken wire, even though chicken wire is easier to work with. My question has more to do with how much of a difference. We have a planting scheduled on September 13th, but our assigned date for pickup is September 20th. So I was planning to go to Logan and pick up the plants, but how much of a difference in the plants I get is that going to make? I had assumed that the plants were the same wherever you went.
So they are. So there's more similarities in the northern kits, and that means from let's say maybe Richfield up north, and then down south, there's a little bit more difference in the plant kits. There
Okay, well,
should,
we're in Salt Lake.
okay, yeah, so there shouldn't be that big of a difference. If you want to pick up in Logan, they will, for the most part, but we can also take note of where you are, and there's a couple of species that I'm thinking of. Actually, I think most of the species will work in if you pick up in Logan or Salt Lake. So, and we'll certainly have your information in terms of where you are with that as well.
Okay, great.
So,
Thank you.
yeah. All right, I think we're going to take one more question, John and Ann Smith.
Yes, thank you. My question is, when we plant other plants, we use B1 and other fertilizers for the initial planting. Do you recommend any kind of initial fertilizer or B1's root stimulant or anything like that?
I really don't. You know, again, these native plants are very used to the native soils in all their glory, right? The pH, the high pHs, the very, different types of texture. What and Becky was saying that she doesn't like to dig too big of holes, and I would agree with that in terms of not disturbing a lot of soil. But sometimes what I like to do, I like to think of it as that, that poor root ball trying to make the transition from this greenhouse soil to the native stuff. So I like to put a little bit of soil, maybe native soil, maybe mixed with a tiny bit of compost around that root ball. So make the hole just a little bit bigger to make that transition from the root that's in that tube to the native soil. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and again, a lot of these plants, particularly the penstemons, the globe mallows, they just they don't like any extra fertilizer or anything, and so they thrive in our native soils. Palmer's penstemon, I found that the more neglect, the better. So
Yeah. Okay.
it's my kind of gardening.
Thank you.
Okay, I think it is 7:35, so I think we're gonna stop it there. So thank you for the 112 that have sat through this whole thing. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I'm so excited for you all, and I look forward to meeting some of you on distribution day. So bring the questions there too, and we will be happy to answer them there. So thank you all, and have a good night.
Thank you.